Tonight, as our nation marks the third highest single-day death toll since May, the COVID crisis is still very much unfolding in states like Texas.
With a surge of COVID-19 cases sparking debate now over whether face masks should be mandatory in all public settings.
The mayors of 6 cities sent a joint letter to Congress demanding that leaders help end what they call an occupation of their streets by federal agents.
I guess I'm overwhelmed. I don't know where to find the resources. And the resources they do have, even though they have an abundance of them, I don't know.
You lay that against the pandemic and the upcoming election, and there's obviously a lot of controversy and concern, but this has been a long simmering problem that Congress
it's
and the White
simply
House
a matter of how.
How did they do it? Reaching those expectations.
Good morning. Good to see you all today. Welcome again to Hill Country, Steiner Ranch. Welcome to you as well. I'm going to start off our time together with a question. It's a real softball question. What do you think is the main goal in life? Like, what's the main purpose, of all of this? We got it, right? I think we all know it. Kind of an obvious answer. The meaning of life is to be happy. The meaning of life is to be happy. I heard somebody. The meaning of life is to be happy. We know this, right? That's why we're on this planet, to squeeze as much pleasure and happiness as we can out of this thing, right? That's why we're here. That's why we exist. Even the Dalai Lama knows this. He tells us, I believe that the very purpose of life is to be happy. He's got it. Aristotle, what does he say? Happiness is the meaning and the purpose of life, the whole aim of human existence. And Pharrell, in his #1 radio hit, instructs us to clap along if you feel like happiness is the truth. Come on, we got the answer to the question, right? Think about it. It's all over our culture, too. It's in everything. Think about movies or advertising. L'Oreal, because you're worth it. Girl, you're worth it. You're worth it. Think about self-help books we might read. You do you. How to get what you want. And we hear this as advice from friends and family, just do whatever makes you happy, right? We know this. But would it surprise you to learn that that's actually a lie from the pit of hell? That Pharrell's wrong, it's not the truth. We've been in this series called Woke for these past couple weeks. Now, woke is a really interesting word, really popular word. What does it mean? Well, the term comes from the African American vernacular, and it means to be aware of injustices in society and to be dialed into, tuned into all of the factors that are playing into this behind the scenes. All right? In our series, we've been challenged to be woke to the schemes of the devil, to be dialed into who the devil is, dialed into his lies and how they affect our lives. We've learned that Satan is our enemy and he wants to destroy us. We've learned that Satan is shaping our culture and our culture is shaping us. Okay? So back to the meaning of life. What's the big problem with saying our main goal in life is the pursuit of happiness? It's because it's one of these lies from the devil. Satan's false message is that happiness should be our goal in life. Satan is lying to you about what the meaning of life is. He's shaping culture to reinforce that lie to us every day. But Jesus has a very different perspective on what our main goal in life should be. Jesus has a really different view on what the main thing should be. And he's got a really different path on finding fulfillment and finding purpose. All right? This is a big idea that we're going to dissect this morning right here. The pursuit of happiness leads to loss. The pursuit of Christ leads to life. Jesus has a better way. Jesus has a better way. We're going to dig in to the book of Mark today. We're going to spend some time in the Gospel of Mark. And throughout this book, we see Jesus' proclamation of who he is demonstrated by what he does. We see who he is demonstrated by what he does. Now, I would encourage you, we're just going to spend time in just a handful of verses here, a few verses. But I would encourage you this week, read the book of Mark. It really is awesome. It's just this fast-paced, action-packed account of Jesus' life. But what we see in these first 8 chapters are some really incredible things. Let me give you kind of a 10,000-foot view on what we learn about in chapters 1 through 8 in Mark. This is how Jesus has presented himself clearly so far. He taught as a man with divine authority. He cast out demons, demonstrating his authority over the realm of the devil. He stilled the sea and he calmed the storm, demonstrating his authority over nature itself. He healed the sick, brought sight to the blind, opened the ears of the deaf. He miraculously multiplied bread and fish to crowds of thousands of people. He brought back people from the dead, showing that he has authority even over death. In other words, Jesus is winning. Like, he's out there crushing it, and his disciples know it. You know they're stoked about it too. Like, their leader is doing all of this stuff, and they're looking around and they're like, man, all we do is win, 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 win. No matter what, their leader is killing it. Maybe you can relate to somebody in your life like that. Maybe it was a parent or a coach or an employer. Maybe it's how you feel about the person that you've chosen as your presidential candidate. I don't know. All I know is I'm sure the disciples felt this way about their leader, Jesus. And at the end of Mark chapter 8, the disciples are faced with all of this evidence, and they're going to be asked to make a verdict, to bring a verdict to a question. And that question is, who is Jesus? Who is Jesus? While Jesus and his disciples are traveling to their next ministry assignment, Jesus asks them this question himself. So I encourage you to turn there right now. Mark chapter 8, verse 27, or pull that up on your smart device. Mark chapter 8, verse 27. On the way, Jesus, asked them, "Who do people say I am?" They replied, "Some say John the Baptist, others say Elijah, and still others, one of the prophets." And so this is this pinnacle, huge moment between Jesus and his closest followers. And he's saying, guys, people have been seeing me do all of these miracles. Like, they hear me teach with authority. Like, what are they saying about me? Like, who do they think that I am? And he gets some really interesting answers right here, right? John the Baptist back from the dead. Some people are saying that. Some people are saying Elijah back from the dead. One of the other prophets. In other words, like, they don't know, but they know he's a big deal. Like, for them to think that maybe he's Elijah back from the dead, like, we're talking about like the number 2 prophet behind Moses. Like, they don't understand exactly who Jesus is, but they know that he's extremely important. So their answers really tell us something about what the collective consciousness is thinking about him, right? Now he gets really personal with his disciples in this next verse. Let's read that. Verse 29. "But what about you?" he asked. "Who do you say I am?" So he's saying, you guys have been with me along the way. You've been my guys. You've seen me do all these public miracles, but you've even seen some other miracles that when no one else was watching. You've seen me explain these parables to you. You've seen me walk on water and calm the storm, heal all these people. Like, do you guys understand yet who I am? Do you get it? Who do you think I am? Peter answers, "You are the Messiah." You're the Messiah. So Peter answers correctly, right? Like, he identifies Jesus as the promised deliverer of the people, the Son of God, the anointed one, the fulfillment of all the prophecies. Yes, he gets it. But now Jesus is going to clarify. He's going to explain what that actually means in this next verse. Let's continue. Verse 31. He began to teach them that the Son of Man must suffer many things. What? And be rejected by the elders, the chief priests, and the teachers of the law, and that he must be killed. And after 3 days rise again. He spoke plainly about this. And Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him. So Peter identifies Jesus as the Son of God, the Messiah, and within a minute, he's rebuking Jesus. Whoa. So recognize this isn't like a minor confrontation. This means a sharp disapproval. Like this implies that Peter was like up in Jesus' face. And we can infer what this rebuke was. Jesus, you're wrong. What are you talking about? There's no way this is what you're going to do. How are you going to save your people if you die? Like suffering, torture, like the death of a criminal, the death of a loser? No way. No way. This is what the Pharisees want. We can't let them win. Everything we've done, everything we've worked for is going to go down the drain if you do this. Jesus, don't do this. So understand, Jesus is saying to his followers, his friends, I'm going to give my life away. And Peter's saying, no, don't do that. Your life's not about self-sacrifice. It's not about serving others in this way. Like your life's about being here with us and like making our lives better. Think of all the other people you could heal, all you could do if you don't give your life away. Don't do this, Jesus. Jesus, treat yourself. Jesus, you need to do you. We need to understand this was not, Jesus, I'm so sorry that you're going to go through this. I'm so sorry. I don't understand it 100%, but you're my leader, and I'm going to stand by you till the end. No, this was the opposite. This was the opposite. So how does Jesus respond? It says, when Jesus turned back and looked at his disciples, he rebuked Peter. Get behind me, Satan, he said. You do not have in mind the concerns of God, but merely human concerns. Man, well, that's just about as specific as possible, right? Like, we don't have to make an inference here that this is a lie from Satan. Like, Jesus actually calls out Peter and calls him Satan. Like, he understands that his friend has been influenced by the enemy. He says, away from me, Satan. You want to distract me from this mission with this lie, but I'm not biting. I'm not biting. And friends, look at that boldness of Satan. We've got to be woke that if he would approach Jesus Christ like this, with these sorts of lies, you know he's doing it to us too. You know he's doing it to us too. We need to ask ourselves, are we buying this lie? Are we living our lives for our own happiness? And that's our main pursuit, our primary aim of our existence. Because we can see clearly right here, right? Like, this is the way that man thinks, influenced by the devil. This isn't the way that God thinks. This isn't the way that God wants us to think. Because here's the deal. Whatever we make is that main thing in our lives, however we would answer that question, this is my main purpose, everything in our lives are filtered through that. You know what I mean? When you've got a main purpose, you're going to look at everything in your life and say, are these things, are these people like getting me to my goal? And with this way of thinking about happiness, man, relationships become commodities. Think about it. Like, if this person's making me happy, then this is a good, healthy, right relationship. But if this person's not making me happy anymore, they're toxic. They're toxic. We throw around that word. They're toxic, and I need to cut ties with them. And we do that in our careers. We do this with Jesus. Jesus, if I'm happy, if you are making me happy, then you're good. And even if I'm not really feeling like you're doing anything good for me right now, I'm not going to give up on you because I got this ticket to heaven. Got this ticket to heaven in my back pocket. You guys see how it twists everything when we believe that lie? It makes everything more transactional, more disposable when happiness is our main goal. Remember, the pursuit of happiness leads to loss. The pursuit of Christ leads to life. Now, one last thing about happiness, too. Happiness is always a moving target, right? Like teenagers in the room, think about what made you happy when you were a kid. That wouldn't make you happy now. And then what would make you happy right now isn't going to work when you're 30 or when you're 60. It's this moving target. It's a brilliant lie by Satan because he's convinced us to make this thing the most important thing, and it doesn't even stay like congruent through our lives. We can't forget that Satan is a master liar. It's not like he minored in lying in his undergrad. Like, he's a doctor. He's a doctor of deception. And he uses a tactic here that's so smart. He uses it with Peter. He uses it with us. And he knows that the best lies have just enough beef to hold the bologna together. Let's look at bologna real fast. I'm not exactly sure everything that's in like this pink meat pancake, that's not beef. Like, I know beef, right? There's a little bit of beef in here, just enough beef to hold this bologna together, enough beef that the manufacturer could put on the packaging, this is beef. But like, it's clear this isn't beef. So what am I talking about? The best lies have just a little bit of truth swirled in. The most well-crafted lies have a little bit of truth sprinkled on top. I mean, think about what we're talking about right here. Like, there's nothing inherently wrong or evil with being happy, but when the pursuit of the experience becomes the main goal, there's the destructive lie, right? Like, happiness is one of the experiences we have in life. We have lots of experiences in life. Happiness is one of them, but it's not the goal of life. And when the pursuit of that experience becomes the main thing, everything else that matters falls by the wayside. So, I mean, Satan's taking something here that's fine, being happy, and he's tempting us to make it the main thing. Just enough beef to hold the bologna together. Make no mistake, Satan's not stupid. Think about how he comes at Jesus. He came at him directly in the desert, when he was tempting him in the desert with these sorts of lies. Now he's coming indirectly through one of his friends. And he is smart. He's strategic with us too. We've got to be woke to this. Like, why does Satan call us to seek happiness as our primary goal in life? Because he knows what it'll do to us. He knows what it'll cost us in the long run, and we can't see it. But Jesus calls us to a really different path. Jesus teaches us that following him should be our primary goal in life. Following him and his way on his path should be our main aim in this life. Now, he's going to explain this further starting in verse 34. I'm going to put it up on the screen, but before I do, I want you to dial in with the first thing it says. It says that Jesus gathered a crowd around him for this next section. Now, this is really significant. I think up to this point, he's just talking with his guys, like his 12 disciples. What he says next, by calling this crowd to him, he's saying this is for everyone. Like, this isn't just for pastors and teachers or for these 12 disciples. Like, this is for anyone who would say, I want to follow Jesus. What he says next is the truth about life. Then he called the crowd to him along with his disciples and said, whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. For whoever wants to save their life will lose it. But whoever loses their life for me and for the gospel will save it. I mean, that's counterintuitive, right? I mean, that is countercultural. But this is the loving call of the one who died for us. Jesus is saying, don't live to promote yourself. Live to follow me. Don't live to indulge yourself. Live to follow the path that I'm going to be laying out for you. Your life isn't about you. It's about me and my kingdom. I mean, this is just a mind-blowing statement from Jesus. Before we get into this deeper, let me just also give you a warning. Because there is huge danger here. There's huge danger for misinterpretation, specifically with take up their cross. So I believe this is one of the most misquoted, misused, misapplied verses in all of Scripture. So how do we do it? When we face a hardship that gets in the way of our happiness, we appropriate this verse, and what do we say? This hardship is just my cross to bear. Right? You said it? I'm sure I've said it. It's just my cross to bear. Like we're doing Jesus a favor by suffering and having a good attitude about it. It's just my cross to bear. So my car breaks down. This is just my cross to bear. I get sick. This is just my cross to bear. We're going through COVID. This is our cross to bear. But this is not what this verse means at all. This is Satan's manipulation and twisting of the truth. I mean, it's crazy how Christians quote this verse and it means nothing like what Jesus is talking about. It means nothing. This is the key discipleship passage in Scripture, like twisted to, I've faced some hardship in this life that I've built around my own happiness. That's my cross to bear. I mean, not only is it like minimizing the cross of Christ, it's kind of like mocking it when you think about it. You know what I mean? It's kind of mocking it. Like, okay, Jesus, you suffered on the cross and you paid for my sin and your grace. And you say that if I want to have life, I need to quit focusing on myself and give myself fully to you, and then you're going to give me the best possible life. But no, that's not what you meant. That's not what you meant. What you meant is when things go wrong, you're actually bringing these things into my life, and I just got to deal with them. And at the end of them, you owe me happiness. Danger, danger, danger. We have to be so careful not to misunderstand this. Like, it may not be your favorite thing, but wearing a mask in HEB is not your cross to bear. Shots fired. I know. It's not your cross to bear. There's another way we often misinterpret this. Not the cross like Jesus is talking about, but the cross in the form of a cause. What do I mean by that? Our mentality is like, sure, my life is built around my happiness, but I've got this cause that I take part in. You know what I mean? I think we do this to try to kind of avoid guilt because we know that we are obsessed with our own happiness. We're obsessed with our own happiness. We'll pick up something that we get really passionate about, but it doesn't actually change what our lives are about. I mean, have you ever done it? Have you ever rallied for something on Facebook and railed against someone who didn't agree with you? I mean, I've been guilty of it. I think back to 2012, and there was this huge social media campaign, huge, about this warlord in Africa that was doing these horrible things, these atrocious things. I watched this like 25, 30-minute video, and I'm like, I'm going to change my profile picture. I'm going to post this video. I'm going to post the hashtag. This is going to be kind of my thing. This would be kind of like my cross to bear. Like, I felt kind of cool. I kind of felt like a global citizen a little bit. Like, I've been to Africa. I'm kind of woke to this. But did I change anything about my life? No. Did I donate any money to this cause that I believed in? Not a penny. Was it my cross to bear? It wasn't, but I kind of acted like it. I kind of wanted you to think it was, right? But what would I have done if it was? I would have sold out for it. I would have moved to Africa or traveled to Africa to help. I would have joined the U.S. military to go and fight. I would have gone full free Burma Rangers and swung in there and given my life for it, but I didn't, because it's still just kind of about myself at the end of the day. Make Coney famous? Wish I was making Jesus famous then. It's an easy thing to do, easy thing to fall into. We post something online, we feel really special, and we don't change anything about our lives at all. I mean, some people do, don't get me wrong, some people do. The vast majority of us just don't. So whether it's my cross as a hardship or my cross as a cause, we're missing the point here. We're missing the point, and there's some huge danger. They're both just really excuses that we make because our lives tend to be all about our pursuit of happiness. But that's just not what this verse means. In fact, let me read it one more time. Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. For whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for me and for the gospel will save it. I mean, think about it. Jesus' suffering, crucifixion, and death show that his own aim was to give his life away, to not make his life about himself, but willing to totally and completely give his life to God. No matter if it made him happy or not, or if he suffered, or in his case, if he died. No matter the outcome for him personally. So what does that mean for us? What is Jesus calling us to? It means that to be his disciple is to follow his example. To follow his example. You deny yourself what your flesh wants, and you follow Jesus in obedience. His cross to bear was dying for our sin. His cross to bear was dying for our sin, dying the death that we should have died. And he's inviting us to follow him to the cross, but to die to ourselves. He's saying, follow me to the cross, but die to yourself. It reminds me of Titus 2:11. For the grace of God that brings salvation has appeared to all men, teaching us that denying ungodliness and worldly lusts, we should live soberly, righteously, and godly in this present age. By the way, a little shout out to Awana. I hid that verse in my heart when I was about 10, and it's still with me. I think Awana's kicking off pretty soon, folks. This is really helpful too. There's a theologian named William Lane, and he offers this really helpful explanation here as well. He says this: Jesus stipulated that those who wish to follow him must be prepared to shift the center of gravity in their lives from a concern for self to reckless abandon to the will of God. The central thought in self-denial is disowning any claim that may be urged by the self, a sustained willingness to say no to oneself in order to be able to say yes to God. Hopefully that was helpful. That was helpful for me as I was trying to wrestle through and get my head wrapped around this, because this is what it truly means to follow Jesus. And when we do that and we lose this counterfeit life that Satan in our culture wants us to be driving after, we actually find a life of significance. We find a life of significance. Following Jesus brings eternal significance to our lives. That's what he's offering us. What do we lose? We lose that fake artificial life that's not getting us anywhere. What do we gain? Eternal significance. Jesus is saying, if you give your whole life to me, your time and your relationships and your family, your gifting, your finances, and you choose to follow me and do things my way for my kingdom, you're actually saving your life. You're actually finding real life. It's counterintuitive, but it's true. And what's the other side of this paradox? If you make happiness as your ultimate goal, you're going to lose the life that God wants for you. You're going to lose that life, the real life, a life replaced with things that don't last and don't even matter. Our decisions will be foolish. Our lives will be fruitless. Do you want your life to be fruitless? Man, I don't. The pursuit of happiness leads to loss. The pursuit of Christ leads to life. Now, Jesus continues. Let's jump back in here. In verse 36, he says, "What good is it for someone to gain the whole world yet forfeit their soul?" We have to ask the question first, like, what does Jesus mean by forfeit their soul? It means the wasting of one's life. In choosing to believe this lie, we miss out on the life to the full that Jesus offers us. So understand, we're not talking about eternal salvation here, right? Romans 10:9, if you declare with your mouth that Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you'll be saved. You'll be saved. If you've done that, if you've had that encounter with Jesus and called out on his name and placed your faith and trust in him, I'm not talking about eternal salvation. I'm talking about the loss of eternal significance. The loss of eternal significance. Now back to this verse. What good is it for someone to gain the whole world yet forfeit their soul, forfeit their essence, forfeit their life? I mean, imagine if you were to get everything there is, but it cost you everything to get it. Imagine if you set out to make happiness your main aim in life, and you got all the happiness you could get, every bit of it. But to get that, it costs you everything good and true and real. What if we worship the idol of happiness, but we forfeit what God wants for us to get it? Now, here's the startling, wild, practical truth here as well. The pursuit itself contains the greatest threats to happiness. The threats are found in the pursuit. What are they? Expectation and entitlement. Think of expectation. When we make happiness as our number one goal, we set an expectation for everything and everyone around us. You tracking with me? Like we set an expectation for our spouse, for our kids, for our friends, for our work. We set those expectations, and every time we raise those expectations, these people, the important people, they're actually diminished. As we're raising this, they're diminished because they can't actually meet your expectations. They can't meet my expectations. But when we remove that lie, when we get woke to this and say, this is not what my main goal in life is, it actually brings blessing to our lives. And it brings blessing to the people around us. I mean, it sucks when you can't meet someone's expectation, right? Like it's a gift that we can receive from God that we actually give to the people around us. That they're not going to be having to try to meet these expectations, these impossible standards that we set. And then there's entitlement. I deserve happiness. Somebody owes me happiness. And if you're not giving me happiness, you're disposable. I mean, entitled people are lonely people because eventually they push everybody away. That's the truth. Entitled people are lonely people because they push everybody away eventually. But man, when we knock that lie from the top of our thoughts, the top of our heart, out of that number one place of the goal in our lives, man, we get our freedom back. Like we get our self-alertness and control back. We get our hearts back for the people that God has placed in our lives. Like it makes our lives better. So in both of these things, expectation and entitlement, we actually lose life. But the good news is that Jesus offers us so much in the place of it. Freedom, true joy, peace with God and each other, love, hope. That's what's replaced. Now, Jesus closes with this challenge to the church today. I want us to all dial into this. This is verse 38. It says, if anyone is ashamed of me and of my words in this adulterous and sinful generation, the Son of Man will be ashamed of them when he comes in his Father's glory with the holy angels. Hill Country Bible Church, what if Jesus, the one who suffered to secure us, introduces us to the Father someday, and we were more concerned about what this adulterous, self-absorbed, anti-God generation thought of us than of what God thought of us? And can you imagine? Can you imagine God saying to you, I gave you every opportunity, and you chose to take this fleeting emotion and make this the main thing in your life, instead of being a representative of the one who gave you life. Man, I can't imagine that. I don't want Jesus to be ashamed of me. I want him to be proud of me. I want him to say, well done, good and faithful servant. I died for you, and you followed me to the cross, and you died to yourself, and there you found the life that I wanted for you. And there are plenty of people who claim to be Christians, and their lives are completely obsessed with their own happiness. Not only are they ineffective in the kingdom, but they actually hurt the cause of Christ. People living man's philosophy, authored by Satan, and saying this is who Jesus is and what Jesus is all about. This cannot be us. We've got to get woke to this. When we pursue this fleeting, momentary happiness, a life exactly like our culture and our enemy tells us to live, we miss the whole thing. Marriages end in divorce because we think we'll be happy with another person, and we deserve happiness. We get up to our eyeballs in debt because we think these things that we buy are going to make us happy. We buy them even if we can't afford them now. We leave a trail of broken relationships because of our expectations and our entitlement. We drive people away. But man, Jesus just has a better way. He has a better way, and we so desperately need the counterculture of Jesus. Friends, there is just a dramatic contrast between the schemes of Satan and the purposes and promises of God. Like, it's not nuanced. They are opposites. It is black and white. Jesus wants to save. Satan wants to kill, steal, and destroy. They're opposites. Jesus wants to give us real life, life of freedom and joy and blessing and peace. Abundant life is available to us when we actually understand what it's all about. And when we get woke to this, that's when we can actually begin to grow, become more dependent on God, our Father, be people marked by gratitude and grace. If you're not a believer in the room here or at Steiner, let me just speak to you for a moment. This kind of life is available to you. This kind of life is real. It's available to you. And I believe that you're listening to me say this right now because Jesus wants that relationship with you. You can put your faith and trust in him today and find real life. After our services at both of our campuses, we'll have the prayer team down here. Any of them would love to talk with you about what that means. Now let me talk to the Christian in the room. If you would answer the question, who is Jesus? If you would answer that like Peter and say, he's the Messiah, he's the Son of God, then what Jesus says is the truth of life, is the most important thing. What he says about life is the most important thing. And what is our ultimate goal? Standing in his presence someday, having lived a life that was pleasing to him, a life lived for others, not for ourselves. That is the ultimate goal. Pursuit of happiness leads to loss. Pursuit of Christ leads to life. We sang a song this morning called Crowns. It's one of my favorite worship songs. I'm going to read some of those words for us right now, just as our prayer, as our closing prayer. May these words be true of us as we seek God's greater purpose together. Would you pray with me? God, my wealth is in the cross. There's nothing more I want. Just to know your love. My heart is set on Christ, and I will count all else as loss. The greatest of my crowns mean nothing to me now, for I've counted up the cost, and all my wealth is in the cross of Jesus. Amen.